Hello, everyone. Welcome to another masterclass of Uni Discovery. My name is Ananya. I'm the founder of the company, and today I have a very special professor, master of the field of college applications, specifically when it comes to documentation and writing. We have Hina Jain Ostwal. She's someone who has worked for multiple years in this field of college applications, specifically working on different types of documents, whether it's SOPs, letter of recommendations, essays, resumes. These are very important components of one's application, if not the most important component. It really gives you a platform to express yourselves to the university and let them know where you stand vis-a-vis other applicants. So it's really a chance to stand out from the mundane everyday aspects of what even other applicants would submit. So it's a very important masterclass. We'll be sharing a lot of tips and tricks. Hina, who has a lot of experience working with so many students and getting them admitted into the top universities across the world, will be sharing her insights over all those years. So without further delay, I'm going to pass on the floor to her to take you through all of those strategies. So please take out your pens and papers and make some notes. Hina, over to you.
Thank you, Ananya. It's a pleasure talking to all of you. And as Ananya started, when it comes to application documents, they may not be the most important, but in some cases, Ananya, can we just like whatever, like the mistakes and the glitches, can they just be edited to
Sure,
start?
sure.
Yes. Yes.
Can we
Okay.
restart this? So, I mean, even when you're saying, right, you can just go on
Huh.
and on. So it just becomes easier for me to edit it. वो cut
Okay.
नहीं लगेगा.
ठीक है, ठीक
So
है,
I can
ठीक है.
restart. हाँ, I'll tell the editor यहाँ से शुरू करना है.
Hmm.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
you are going to start, right?
I'll restart the intro.
Okay,
Yeah, no problem.
okay,
I'll keep it crisp as
okay.
well.
Yeah,
Hi
just a moment.
everyone.
You can
Oh,
just a moment.
good.
Okay, okay, okay. You can just put this like right,
Yes, we
this
can
and
put
then
that
this.
slide also. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to another masterclass by Uni Discovery. My name is Ananya, I'm the founder of the company, and today I have a very special guest who's going to be taking you through all of the tips and tricks regarding one of the most important aspects, if not the most important, in your college applications, which is document writing. I have Hina Jain Ostawal here with me, who has 15 years of document writing experience. She's worked with multiple students over the years, got them admitted into some top universities across the world, taking them and helping them through writing a better statement of purpose, writing a better resume, writing better essay questions and answers, just overall sprucing up your profile through your resume and all of the other documents in written format that are required by universities across the world. So this is going to be a very important session because these documents give you a chance to stand out in your college applications vis-a-vis other applicants. It's really is a chance to express yourselves better and all of your accomplishments. And you really need to make sure you're taking this part very seriously, because this is where you can differentiate yourself and really get to the university of your dreams. So without further delay, Hina, I'm going to pass on the floor to you to take all of the applicants and aspirants through the different tips and tricks that you have curated all over these years. Over to you.
Thank you, Ananya. Now, when it comes to application documents with respect to applying to the universities abroad, I believe that's the first and the most important step for a student to showcase himself, herself to the university she is applying to. So, of course, the documents that we are going to talk about in many cases make or break your chances of getting into that university. So without any further ado, let's get started. So these are the topics that we'll be covering in today's presentation or session. So we'll be primarily talking about four kinds of documents: SOPs, resumes, LORs, and essays. What they are, what need to go into these important documents, what you must do, what you must try to showcase, what you must not do, so that you can enhance your chances of getting into the universities, along with the tips and the strategies when it comes to preparing to these documents are the areas that we'll be talking about. So the first document that we'll be talking about are the SOPs. SOP stands for Statement of Purpose. In one line, as you can see on your screens, it's an instrumental mouthpiece for a student to give a first-hand insight of his or her academic, research, professional, and extracurricular profile to the universities, along with his or her aims and intents after finishing the program. So statement of purpose is a very important document, and in this session we are going to talk a lot about this. Resumes or CVs, curriculum vitae, it's an objective summary or a snapshot that gives information about your academic profile, about your professional career, work experience, about what you have done as part of your co-curricular or extracurricular activities, volunteering activities, community service. So a resume, CV gives a snapshot to the university about these things. LORs, letters of recommendation, basically these are provided by the professors. Now, when it comes to universities abroad, professors take the pain, they take the effort to write, to draft a letter of recommendation for their students. But here in India, this part too has to be mostly done by the applicant himself or herself. So basically in this document, a professor or an employer or a senior talks about an applicant's capabilities or potential to pursue a program, or why the person has chances of getting into that university, or why that person should be admitted for that particular program or course. And then we have essays. Now, when it comes to essays, not all universities have requirements for essays. Nevertheless, many of the universities at different points in the application, or once the student is admitted, may ask for some essays. They either may be admission essays or scholarship essays. So let's touch down upon all of these documents. Let's take them one at a time. So first, we are going to talk about SOPs, because that's the most important component of your documentation. In all these years, what I have experienced of working with different kinds of students, students who come from different age groups, this is the document that poses a lot of problems for the students. A lot of them don't understand what it means, what they need to do, what they need to write, what they need to present, showcase in this document. So basically, SOP stands for Statement of Purpose, as I've told you earlier, and this can be known by different names for different universities. SOPs can be called as either letter of intent or motivation letter, or a personal statement. So that depends upon the university, the country also. So for example, when it comes to Germany, they usually don't call it Statement of Purpose, it's called motivation letter. But on the whole, the purpose of an SOP, or you call it by any of these names, remains the same. The purpose is to present to the admission committee your reasons of applying to that particular university, to that particular program, and why you as a candidate, as an applicant, stand out or is capable enough to be admitted for that particular program or to that particular university. So it's an essential mouthpiece for a student to showcase his or her passion, intent, what kind of experiences the person has had. But all this has to be done in a concise, in a comprehensive way. Okay, so SOP writing takes a lot of skills, and once you understand what you need to showcase, it becomes easier to present your profile. Also, it serves as a writing sample and an interview. So when you're applying to universities abroad, of course, they don't know you, and they get applications from all over the world. So how would they know what kind of experiences you have had? For example, if you have worked on a particular project, which might be a part of the program that you are going to pursue. So how do you let the university know that you have gained first-hand experience, or you have gained foundational knowledge of that particular area? So here the SOPs come into picture. Now, what all areas need to be touched down upon in an SOP? So there are a lot of things that you can put in an SOP, but the five important components or the areas that must be covered in an SOP include these. So first, as I mentioned, it's a mouthpiece for a student to let the admission committee know why he or she wants to go for that program, for either his bachelor's or master's or PhD. What are the reasons? What drives that person to go for that particular program? Okay. Then what you have done to be prepared, what you have done to be eligible for that particular program. Eligible is the right word, or to be suitable for that particular program. So here, you showcase your academic and your professional experiences, or your research experiences if you have had. What would you do? The next point is, what would you do once you pursue that program, or even while you're pursuing that program? Okay, so what are your future goals? What are your objectives, aims during the program? Once you are done with that program, how would you implement the knowledge, the skills, the expertise that you have gained during the course of the program in your life, for the society, or for the corporate world, or for the technological or the scientific world? How would you utilize or harness your skills or your expertise? So this is a very important aspect of an SOP. And whatever the word limit is, in the next slide we'll be talking about the word limits of an SOP. So whatever the word limit is, you must make it sure that you are talking about your future goals. You are going to talk about what would you do with the knowledge that you have gleaned during the course of the program. The next important point is research interests. Now, as a person who has been into this field for all these years, and who has interacted with so many university officials who have visited us, one thing I would like to tell the students to always include in their SOP is what kind of research they would want to do. Now, this goes not just for the PhD students, but also for the masters and for the bachelor students. For the students who are applying for a master's or a bachelor's program, what kind of research would you like to do? Now, a lot of students leave this section empty, or when asked in an SOP questionnaire, what would you like to research about, or what kind of research you would like to pursue? So they simply put, they have no research intentions. They would just complete the program and like to work. Now, even the universities, with years of experience that they have with working, with the students who come from different parts of the world, they know that you are going to work, of course, but they would also like to see what academic interest you have in that particular program. So here it becomes important to talk about your research interests. And what the next important point is, what makes you suitable, what makes you eligible for the program? Why are you an apposite candidate for that particular program? So these are the five important areas which you must include in your SOP. Now, in addition to this, of course, you can touch down upon different areas also. So for instance, if you have some really some really great experiences when it comes to volunteering, or when it comes to extracurriculars, co-curriculars, you should make sure that you do include them in your SOP as a part of the second point, that is your preparation for further study in the desired field. So when universities assess your candidature or your application, they don't just want you to be a nerd. They don't want nerds or geeks to their university. They want to know what you would bring to the table, as an individual, what you would add to the class, what you would add to the university. So you should make sure that you talk about your experiences, okay, not just academic, or professional, but also co-curricular, extracurricular, volunteering, community service. In addition to this, SOP also becomes a great platform to talk about any lags, or to talk about any lacunae in your profile. For instance, you may have had a year drop, or you might have had a back in a particular subject, or you might have for some reason not been able to appear for an exam. So in SOP you can weave those points as well. Okay, so these are the areas that you can cover in your SOP. Also, you can talk about if you have had any role model, or if you have any inspiration, or any source of motivation, you can include that in your SOP as well. Now, what could be a suggested layout or format? Now, this actually varies from person to person, and what kind of writing style you have, or what kind of writing style you would bring when it comes to writing an SOP. But primarily, you can divide your SOP into three parts, although it is not mandatory or customary, or something that is enforced upon. It's not written in stone. Okay, but when it comes to SOP writing, so the way that I adopt is I basically divide the SOP into three parts. So I have the introduction, the main body, and the conclusion. um, Now, a very important thing which I forgot to talk about an SOP is that it's not just to showcase you as a person, but it also lets the university an insight into your meticulousness, or an insight into your efficiency when it comes to proficiency, when it comes to your language, or efficiency when it comes to presenting your thoughts. So it's very important to be completely relaxed when you're writing your SOP, and divide your SOP into three parts. Not three, these are not three paragraphs, but these are three parts. So the first is introduction, wherein you talk about what got you interested in the program. Now, these days, the universities, the top universities, would like to know how much aware you are about a particular trend, or about a particular technology, or about the latest advancements and developments. So in the introduction, to pack a punch, right in the beginning, I would suggest that in the introduction you write about something that you would like to research about, or uh, something from your experience that you have understood, and something from your experience that has driven you for that particular program. So this is what you can start your SOP with. uh, as a reader, if you put yourself into place, I always tell students who write their SOPs that whatever piece of writing you have, especially when it comes to SOPs, always put yourself into the shoes of the reader. In this case, they are the admission committee. They have to glean through, they have to go through thousands of applications. So if you have a strong introduction, you hook you engage the admission committee people, the admission committee officers. So the introduction has to be really solid, it has to be really strong. Then comes your main body, which can be divided into three or four paragraphs ideally. In the main body, you talk about your academic experiences, about your work experiences, about what you have done as outside the classroom, what you have done during your internships, what kind of practical experiences you have had, what kind of experiences you have had in your projects. This goes especially for the students who come from a science background, from an engineering background, because it's very important to show to the admission committee that you have gained a lot of practical knowledge as well. In addition to that, you talk about, of course, your future plans, what you would do during the program, what kind of subjects or courses you would like to pursue, and what you would do once you are done with your program. And then comes the conclusion. Usually in the conclusion, in the conclusion paragraph, or in the ending paragraphs, we talk about the university, not necessarily the country, because that is really passe, talking about the country that you are applying for. The university would like to know why you are applying to that particular university. So it's better to talk about how that university fits in your scheme of things, how that particular university or studying in that university is going to take you forward in life. What about that university attracts you, or what about that university or its program or its professors, or about its student community, or about its alumni network, really makes you apply to that university. Okay, so this is the format that you can follow for an easy writing of an SOP. Now, some tips or some do's which you must definitely include or do for your SOP. So be yourself. Okay, a lot of students, what they do is, in the next few slides, I'll be also talking about the don'ts. They take an SOP, as we are accustomed to the Indian system. All we do is, we take somebody else's work, we do some copy pasting, we just change a few things here and there, and then we present the document. So don't do that. Okay, it's quite possible that your level of writing may not be that great, but be original, be yourself, put that effort into your SOP, because trust me, it does pay, it does go a long way in getting the admission committee to yourself. That originality is very important. As I said, the admission committee is looking at different aspects of a person, of a student's or of an applicant's personality. So here originality also comes into picture, how much effort the person has put into writing. Write a strong opening. I have talked enough about it in the previous slide, so I don't think I need to elaborate more on this. Divide your SOP into 5 or 8 suitable paragraphs, okay, of possibly the same length, of commensurate length. Now, again, this is not written in stone, okay, this is not something, it's not a set rubric, but usually 5 to 6 paragraphs should work for a student who is applying for a bachelor's program or for a master's program, if you plan out those paragraphs neatly. Okay, so take a point for a particular paragraph. So for example, if you take a paragraph and you want to talk about your academic experiences, so do only that in that paragraph. Don't try to mix up, don't try to incorporate different things into the same paragraph. Keep it neat and clean. Okay, frame the points you wish to make in a positive light. Don't ever be negative, don't ever be derogatory, don't ever be offensive in any of the documents. Okay, especially in an SOP. I have seen students, who write really negative points about India, or about the Indian education system, or about the college or the school they come from. Don't ever do that in your SOP, because if you're bad mouthing your people here, it clearly shows, it brings you in a bad light. Okay, so don't do that. And if you want to reveal your weaknesses in your personality, again, put a positive spin to it. Okay, for instance, if you have, I have had a couple of students who have unfortunately met with an accident during their exams. So they haven't been able to take those exams, and of course they fail those courses or those subjects. So you can put a positive spin to it. For instance, you can say that although you were not able to take a particular exam, because you had met an accident, you worked really hard and you came back in the next exam. So it shows your resilience. Okay, so rather than showing something as an unfortunate incident or accident, you can show how resilient you have been. Okay, how you have not given up after that particular accident or incident. Okay, be specific, concise, honest, and unique. Now, here again, students have to take a lot of efforts. When it comes to framing of the sentences, how to put a thing as crisp, how to put a thing as concise as possible. Okay, so make sure that the sentences that you write are not very long or very complicated or complex. Write in simple sentences, easy to follow. Even if if you're forming complex sentences, make sure your grammar is bang on. Okay, your spellings, you don't make any spelling mistakes. That reminds me, there have been a lot of times that I have told students how not to use the chat language or the informal or the slang terms when it comes to formal writing. An SOP is a very very formal document. So great, for example, you cannot write GR and 8, so just be specific, concise, honest, unique, and formal. Use lucid language. Don't use complicated structures if you're not comfortable with framing of long sentences. And describe why you're a good match for the program, alongside mentioning why that program is suitable for your profile, or why you want to pursue that program. Okay, so these are some of the important do's and tips. Continuing with more tips, talk about your goals. Okay, as I've already mentioned, it's very important to let the admission committee know what you are going to do with that particular degree. They would want to know how you would bring a good name to that university. Okay, how you would be a contributing member to the society, how you would bring a positive change. They would like to know about all these things. um, uh, Write about your academic project, research, volunteering, personal experiences that have shaped or that have formed your personality or interests. Okay, the universities would like to know more about you as a person as well. Okay, explain any shortcomings in your background, as I've already mentioned. So for instance, if you have had a backlog or if you have had a year drop, so do let the admission committee know if there have been any shortcomings in your academic or profile, or personal profile. This is again a very important point. Follow the university's instructions on how it wants the SOP to be written. For instance, some universities have no word limit on an SOP. Okay, some universities want an SOP or a motivation letter to be under 1,000 words, or to be under 500 words also. Okay, those are usually letter of intent or motivation letters. So always make sure that you are aware of the word count. This may also be in terms of characters. Okay, in terms of character count. So make sure you are aware of these technicalities or of these nitty gritties when it comes to writing the SOPs. Even if the university has not mentioned any word count or any word limit, I would still suggest to the students to stick to around 1,000 to 1,200 words, because reading 4 pages or 5 pages of SOPs can be too tedious for an admission officer. So whatever your profile is, you can definitely put it into 1 or 2 pages. Okay, if you're a bachelor student who doesn't have a lot of extracurriculars or co-curricular activities or volunteering experiences to show, I suppose 1.5 page is a good page limit, or a good page count. When it comes to a master's students who has a person who is applying for master's program, who has had sufficient amount of experience also, then I think around 2 pages is a good count. Formatting, of course, these are all technicalities, and students who come from technological or scientific background, or students who use computers, should not have problems with following these technicalities, when it comes to spacing or margins or paragraphs or font size. So just make sure that you follow all of these when you're preparing your SOPs. Um, Also, as I said, SOP takes perhaps the most amount of effort. So there may be 2 or 3 or 4 drafts of it. So don't be lazy. Don't be lethargic. Write a first draft, then you can work upon it. There is of course a lot of truncation, there are a lot of modifications that take place. When you get stuck when you're writing your SOP, read the questions which are asked by the universities, if they have any, for that particular SOP, or go through the important points which must be covered in your SOP. Okay, so when you get stuck, or when you hit a writer's block, read what needs to be there in an SOP. Make sure that you have effectively answered the questions if the university has asked. You can also take help of a professor or a counselor or a writing expert, or a friend or an elder sibling or an acquaintance who has good command over the language and who knows what an SOP is. So make sure that you make them read your SOP, get their feedback, understand what they think about your SOP, or where it lags, what things you can include. Okay, so these are the things that you must definitely do. Some more tips and do's. Once you have received the feedback, make sure that you make changes to the essays, which makes sense, of course. When it comes to maybe the sentence structure, or when it comes to the layout, or the points that you have put, or the kind of words that you have used. So these people will give you feedback on a whole range of things. So make sure that you do incorporate the feedback of a third person or of a second person as well. Okay, and make sure your SOP is error free. That is, it doesn't have any grammatical errors or any spelling errors. Okay, when you use Word, you get those red squiggles and those green squiggles. So pay more attention to the red squiggles, because sometimes the green squiggles, which denote grammatical errors, maybe because of the kind of sentence structure you have used. So if you're sure that the sentence structure is correct, if you have read it in a legit document, then go ahead. Okay, but try to make sure that your SOP is error free. Make sure that you have established your voice in your final draft. That is, make sure that you come across as as who you are in your SOP. And as I've already mentioned, you have to be unique. You have to impress the reader, the admission committee, with your SOP. So make sure that your final draft is an impressive one, or is the best one that you have drafted. And yeah, this is a very technical point. I have included this because a lot of my students have had this problem. When you type, no matter whatever draft it is, do save it. Okay, do make different copies. If it's a first draft, it's a second draft, third draft, fourth draft. So these all should be different documents. Okay, don't just make changes in the same document. Whenever you sit to make any modifications in your SOP, make sure that you make a copy of it, and then you rename it as second draft, third draft, and then you make changes in it. Okay, and also make sure that you save your whatever modifications you are making. Always make sure that you have a backup, because it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time. So if there are any glitches, for example, if there is a power cut, or if the battery has just died, it shouldn't be that your work is not saved and you have to do all the typing, all the writing again. So do make sure that whatever documents you're working on, this is not just for the SOPs, whatever documents you're working on, you save them. Okay, you save them with a proper name. Okay, please do take efforts in naming the documents properly as well. Okay, and customize your SOP. Yes, this is again very important, according to the university you're applying to. So usually what students do, or usually what a good idea is when it comes to SOP writing, is you make a generic SOP. Okay, that is if you're applying to the same program to different universities. So for example, if you're applying for say MS in mechanical engineering, so you can make a generic draft of it, and the last paragraph you can keep for modifications. That is, you can change it as per the university you're applying to. You can put there the names of the professors according to the university, the name of the courses that that interest you most about mechanical masters in mechanical engineering in that particular university, or the kind of exposure that particular university will give, the kind of clubs or associations that you can join, at that particular university. So make sure that you always customize it according to the university that you're applying to. Similarly, the first paragraph also, if you're applying for different programs, different universities, you can keep the first and the last paragraphs modifiable or customizable, because your work experience or your academic experiences wouldn't change much, but there, of course, there could be modifications, what kind of things you would highlight, would want to highlight with respect to that particular program. So keep it customizable. Okay. And if you still have difficulties completing your SOP, do not hesitate to seek professional help, because there are a lot of people who are there to help you, with your SOPs. And yeah, keep it kicks, keep it concise and simple. Okay. Now with this, we'll come to some don'ts, or what you should avoid in your SOPs. Students, get carried away, they get they go overboard when it comes to their SOPs. So there are some things which you must definitely avoid. The first thing is, avoid plagiarism, because that's a big no when it comes to universities abroad. They are very strict, they are very stringent about plagiarism. If you're not aware of this aspect, please do read about it. You know how students get debarred, or they even get deported because of plagiarized content, because of plagiarized project. Your application can be rejected right away if they find out that your SOP or any part of the documents that they want are plagiarized. Okay. So do not just copy paste. You can be inspired, you can read sample SOPs which are available on the internet, or of your seniors who have gotten into particular universities, or even the ones that the universities put up on their websites. But do not copy paste them, please. Okay, this is very important. And yeah, SOP is not a document to mention details about about your marks, or about the names of institutes. SOP is a very precious piece of document, and every space that you use in your SOP should speak about your experiences. Because for details of your of your work, or of your academic profile, or about your volunteering activities, you have a different piece of document, that is your resume or your CV. You also submit your transcripts, so they don't want to know what marks you have scored. A lot of students put, I have scored 92% in mathematics. Don't do that. It's a very boring and something which really puts you off. So don't put your percentages or marks in your SOPs. Okay, instead mention how your mathematical skills, for instance, if you're really good at maths, how your mathematical skills have enhanced your abilities to reason, have enhanced your logical or your ratiocination capabilities. Okay, so please remember this. Errors, misspellings, poor English, bad grammar, please avoid them in your SOPs. Talk down to your audience. Now, what this means is, a lot of students start with explaining terms that they needn't or they shouldn't. For instance, if you're applying for masters in sustainability, you need not explain what sustainability is, because the person sitting in the admission committee, who will be going through your application for a master's program in sustainability, definitely knows what sustainability is. So instead of explaining or elaborating about sustainability, talk about what inspired you, or what motivated you to apply for this program, what experiences you have had in this particular area, or what you have done for sustainability, or how your projects, or the kind of community service, for example, you might have done is related to sustainability. Okay. Be too personal in your essays. As I said, uh, SOP is a formal document, so please don't be too informal, or don't use slang in your SOPs. Put a personal spin to things, but don't be too personal. Okay. For example, as I've already mentioned, if you have met with an accident, don't just harp about your problems, or about what kind of difficulties you faced. while recovering from the accident. So don't be too personal in your SOPs. Be too repetitive or too general in your statements. So this is very important. This comes, as a part of the writing skills. Avoid using the same words in the SOP. Try to use synonyms, or try to frame your sentences differently. Try to use varied sentence structures. Okay. Again, some more important don'ts that you must remember. Criticize other school programs. As I already mentioned, don't be offensive. Don't look down upon anybody, any institution, or any country, any race, any ethnicity. Don't be offensive. Okay, don't be critical. And yes, as I said, students, go overboard. They they can get carried away. So using, really flowery language, or the kind of words that you're not aware of, but you're just putting in your SOP to stand out. Okay, so make sure that you do not use a word, or a proverb, or an idiom, or a phrase, if you are not sure of how it's used. Okay, so make sure that you know what a terminology means when it comes to using words in your SOPs. Now this goes especially for the students who do their SATs, or their GREs, or their GMATs, because they have to enhance their vocabulary, because they have prepared for these standardized exams. So they have worked a lot on their vocabulary. They do try to include the words, but make sure that you know how that particular word is used. Okay. Write an autobiography. Please do not write an autobiography in your SOP. Okay. Or like what you did as a child. This is again, so commonly found. It's a very common mistake that students make. They start right from their childhood. Okay, so the admission committee are more interested in knowing how you are as a person right now, what experiences have formed you. So when it comes to say for example, if there is a really instrumental experience, or a pivotal turning point that has taken place in your childhood, make sure you don't harp upon it. Okay, again, that comes as a part of your writing skills, how concisely you put the things that have taken place long back. Okay, be mindful of your personal details also, what you put in your SOPs. Okay, so don't write your life story or your autobiography in your SOPs. And yeah, this is very important. Don't exaggerate. Don't lie about any aspect of your profile, about of your experiences in any of the documents, not just SOP, but in any of the documents. Okay, do not lie, do not be untruthful, because universities do remember, the admission committee do remember experiences of students. If there are some special cases, or if there are some really special students, they do remember them. Okay, there have been instances where students have come and told me how a particular person in the admission committee, who has gone through that person's resume and the SOPs and other documents, does remember about his or her profile, and has a conversation or questions about his or her profile. So do not lie about anything. Okay, and don't be overly informal. I think I've spoken a lot about this. Provide details of your project's achievements. Okay, again, as I mentioned, like your marks, do not give each and every bit of information about your projects or about your work experiences also. Instead, mention how those projects have formed you, what kind of skills you have learned, how you have come to gain interest in that particular program. Okay, so remember this. Now about the next important document, that is LOR, which stands for letter of recommendation, or recommendation letter. Again, it's a crucial piece of document. As I mentioned earlier, usually in universities abroad, the professors take the effort to draft LORs, but here in India, what usually professors do, because they are so short of time, they ask the students to write their LORs, and they just sign those LORs. So students uh, do not understand what an LOR is. They try to write them from their own point of view. So basically, LOR is an assessment of your profile. It's a document that endorses your candidature, your capabilities, your suitability for that program from another person's point of view. Okay. So basically, here, the person who is giving you a recommendation, usually the person who gives you a recommendation is either your professor, your teacher, or your employer, or senior at work, or if you have done an internship for a sufficient period of time, somebody a senior, or somebody who owns that particular place where you have done your internship. So these people write about you. Okay, so it's not you talking about yourself, it's somebody else talking about yourself. Okay, so in other words, it's a professional or a formal testament that allows the admission committee to get an insight of your profile, personality, potentiality, from a professor's or an employer's or a senior's point of view. Okay, how that person has felt while working with you or while teaching you. Okay, uh, so this particular document can showcase your technical or your academic or your professional prowess, alongside your what kind of work you have done in your extracurriculars or your co-curriculars. Now here again, I would like to talk about something. When you are drafting your own LORs, you need to bear this in mind, that you are drafting it from the professor's point of view. So a professor would not know each and every detail of your profile. How would that person rate you, rank you? How would that person talk about you? So we leave impressions, okay, on a person. So talk more about those impressions. For example, if you have worked on a particular project, so rather than talking about the details of that project, talk about again, from the professor's point of view, what you brought to that project, what that professor liked about you while working on that project. Okay. Now, categories or types of LOR. So basically, we have two categories or types. One is an academic recommendation, and the other is a professional recommendation. Okay, so if you are a student who has not had any professional experience, all your recommendations, usually you have the universities ask for two or three recommendations, two or three letters of recommendation. So both or all three of these letters of recommendation would come from your professors. Okay, but if you have had some substantial or considerable work experience, then ideally you should try to get two uh, uh, recommendations from your professors, and one from your professional senior, or one from your employer, wherein the person, of course, would talk about how your performance has been in that particular organization or institution, or what kind of work you have done in your professional career. Okay, so again, this is again not written in stone. um, uh, for example, for a professional recommendation, ideally it should be two from academic, one from professional. But if you have had a really long professional career, for example, 10 years or 7 years or 12 years, 15 years, then ideally you should take one from your academic institution, one from your professor, and two from your from the people that you have worked with or worked under. Now, what role does an LOR play? So, while an SOP talks about your profile or showcases your potentialities from your point of view, an LOR talks about you from somebody else's point of view. Okay, so universities don't just rely on the marks or the grades, but they also rely on what kind of person you are, what kind of student you are, what kind of professional you are. So this aspect of you or your profile, they get to know from your LORs. Okay, so they want to know about your work ethic, about your professional ethic, about how you conduct yourself. What kind of ways can you influence or impact your classmates or your colleagues or your peers. So these all things, they get to know from an LOR. And as I said, the professors or the employers or your seniors should talk about your personality, or should talk about your forte, about your strengths, also about your weaknesses. But again, put a positive spin, when you're talking about your weaknesses as well. How you have progressed, how you have matured as a student, as a professional. Okay, so an LOR does that. And why this is also important is because in the universities abroad, professors have a more hands-on interaction with their students. So they definitely want to know how easy a student is to work with, or to teach, or to have as a TA, or as an RA, that's teaching assistant or a research assistant. So they do want to know about these aspects of your personality. So these all things they get to know from an LOR. Once when you understand the purpose of a particular document, you will be able to draft it, in a really comprehensive, in a very clear, concise manner. Okay. What does an ideal LOR do? So it verifies experience. So for instance, if you have talked about a particular project in your resume, or in your SOP, an LOR will endorse what you brought to that project, what kind of contribution you have had while working on that project. It confirms your competence, it confirms your capabilities, it confirms your skills, okay, as a person, as a student. It builds credibility. Okay, because we all live in a world where we all look for endorsements, we all look for assurances, right? So for example, when you go to buy a product, we go for reviews. When we are doing online shopping, for instance, we do make sure that we check the reviews, right, of the customers who have already bought that product. So in the similar fashion, the universities would want to know the experiences of the people who have already known you, who have already worked with you. And it bolsters confidence, of the university in an applicant. So it's a well documented evaluation assessment of your capabilities, of your potentialities, of your personality traits. Okay, and it helps the admission committee in making the decision with respect to your application. So in your LORs, you can make sure that you try to bring out the distinctive, or your strengths, and your distinctive traits, or your strengths, or what sets you apart from other applicants. For instance, if you had been working during your bachelor's, as a freshman or as a sophomore. A lot of students in India do not work uh, while they're pursuing their bachelor's. But if you have been working during your bachelor's, so you can use LOR as a platform to let the admission committee know that, okay, this person has been working since he or she was a bachelor. So a professor can mention about your time management quality, time management abilities, or about your abilities to balance your academics with your professional work. So when a professor who has a reputation, who has a stature, who has accomplishments, writes something about you, that definitely carries great weight, and it adds to your application. And the word limit, ideally it should be around 300 to 500 words. Again, you must always remember that you're writing it from the point of view of a professor or a senior. An LOR is, that person's assessment about you. So that person wouldn't spend hours and hours writing about you, praising you, appreciating you. So stick to the 300 to 500 word limit, so that it looks genuine, it looks it looks bona fide. Okay. Now, what all you must include in an LOR, or what details, information an LOR must have? Firstly, an LOR, in an LOR, the person who is giving you the recommendation must talk about how that person knows you, for how long that person has known you. Okay, this is very important. And in case of academic LORs, the person should talk about what kind of subjects the person has taught you, what kind of projects the person has mentored you or guided you for. Academic highlights, professional highlights, co-curricular, extracurricular involvement. Okay, for instance, if you have been involved in um, the activities or the events of your college or your school, then that person will talk about not necessarily all the details of those involvements or those engagements, but what you did or how you stood out from the rest of the students, and how you manage those activities with your academics. Okay, so these all things, interpersonal skills, your communication skills, your time management skills, if you have really good technical skills, for example, computer skills or data analytics skills, if you're applying for those particular programs. So these all things the person can talk about. Projects undertaken, and if projects undertaken under that person, okay, that person will talk only about the projects you have done under that person. Always remember this. And factors that make you a strong candidate, a strong applicant. Okay, so these are the 7 things that you must see to it that your LOR includes. Now, moving on to the next document, that is a resume or a CV. Now, I'm sure most of the students actually do know what a resume or a CV is. So I'll quickly take you through this part. So basically, it's a summary, it's a snapshot of your academic, your professional, your co-curricular, extracurricular activities, the qualifications that you have, the kind of courses that you might have pursued on different online platforms, or the kind of certifications you would have completed, the kind of proficiency you have in different languages. Okay, your LinkedIn profile if you have one. So these all things, these all details, these all information, pieces of information would be in your resume or CV. The projects, the details of your projects, if it has been published, if it has gone for a patent, all these things will be there in your resume or your CV. Okay, so it leaves a first impression on the admission committee. So again, try to make it crisp, try to make, keep the format clean, clear, readable. Okay, so it must be designed, it must be drafted in a very neat way. Always remember this, right? Now, what things you need to bear in mind when it comes to resumes or CVs? Firstly, do make sure that you have gleaned, you have accumulated all aspects of your profile. Okay, all important aspects of your profile. Now, when you go to make your resumes, this goes especially for the students who apply for masters or for PhD programs. You would not you should rather not include about what you have done as a school kid, what you have done in your third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. The admission committee would look for recent achievements, for your recent qualifications. So as a master student, you should include about your bachelor's. At the most you can talk about your high school achievements, about your high school qualifications, but don't go prior to that. Don't go to your secondary or your primary schooling details when you're writing your resume or your CV. On the other hand, for a bachelor student, you should try to include what all experiences or what all aspects of profile you have had, from your secondary schooling. Okay, again, it's not an autobiography. Okay, you want to talk about the skills, or you want to talk about your qualifications, okay, in or your activities in your resume. Brainstorm, as I mentioned, brainstorm whatever you have accomplished. Make sure that you have collected all the points, you don't miss out on any important details. For example, if you have worked at a particular place, or if you have professional experience, make sure you include all the important responsibilities that you have handled as a part of that job, or the important projects that you have worked while working on that particular job. um, List everything that makes you stand out beside your grades and scores. So your awards, your leadership experience, your volunteering experience, your community service, the certifications that you might have completed. Okay, special talents or interests, and I would not say rather hobbies, but for example, if you have interest in numismatics, or if you have interest in drama, theater. Okay, so these things about your if you have really something great, something really unique, significant about your sports, about you as a sports person, so do include about that also. um, so, for example, this is again something which does not apply to all the students, because not all the students take up a second language or take up any additional languages, or tutor students. But if you have something of this sort, if you have learned a different language, if you have learned a foreign language, if you have done some tutoring work, do make sure that you do include it in your resume or CV. And again, when it comes to formatting, make sure that the entire CV or resume is in a homogenized or in a standard format. There are no discrepancies when it comes to font size or font types. Make sure that the spacing is standard, it's accurate, it's the same throughout the resume. To look at, the resume should be appealing, and it should make clear all the aspects of your profile. Okay, the next important document, as I mentioned earlier, for of your application, could be essays. Of course, not all universities ask for essays apart from your SOPs. Excuse me. In some instances, a university may ask for essays rather than an SOP. But usually the application essays, we'll talk about the admission or the application essays first. So usually these essays would be talking about your profile, trying to bring out what you have done in your past, what you would want to do in your future, why you want to pursue that particular program. So rather than putting all the things in an SOP, you may have these questions wherein you may have to write these answers to, or you may have to give the answers to. So there may be different essays. Scholarship essays usually come into picture once when you get admitted to that university. Okay, so they are usually about what you would bring to that university, why you should be given that scholarship, what makes you eligible for that scholarship. Okay, so these may be essays on particular topics or areas. So as I already mentioned, they may ask you to write about what makes you suitable, or what makes you stand out for that particular program, or for the for a particular course. What you would bring to the student community there, why you want to go to that particular university. Okay, or any notable special incident that has shaped you, that brings out your leadership qualities. So there may be essays which may ask you those kind of questions. Now, usually the word count for these essays, can be anywhere between 100 to 750, depending upon the question. So again, you have to pack a punch in the given word limit. So you should make sure that you don't beat around the bush. You hit the nail on the head. You answer the question, the given question, in the best possible way. Okay, and they, of course, they have to be succinct, because they usually come with a word count or with a character count that you have to stick to. Okay, so these are the questions that that have to be answered in the essays. Now, with this, I think I have talked about all the important parts of your application package. So we talked about SOPs, we talked about LORs, resumes, CVs, and also about essays. So with this, I would like Ananya to take over and guide the students.
Thank you so much, Hina, for such a comprehensive breakdown of all of the important documents that go into an application. I think there have to be a lot of takeaways that these students will get from this session. As next steps, you can obviously repeat and watch this at your own pace as well. But if you have any further questions, please do reach out to us. You'll have all of our emails and WhatsApp groups shared with you. Hopefully, you can also write out all of the questions you'll have so that we can create sort of a FAQ or frequently asked questions document, and we can maybe even get Hina for a part 2 live to discuss everything with you all. So that will be very helpful for everyone involved. But that brings us to the end of this session, and we'll hope to keep in touch with everyone for any future queries regarding documentation and how someone as prolific as Hina will be able to add value. So thank you everyone for joining in, and we'll speak to you all very soon. Thank you, Hina.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope this was informative. This was helpful, and I look forward to answering any queries, questions that the people who have watched this presentation or this session have.
Absolutely. We highly encourage that. Thank you again.
Yeah.